Having you on this channel is indeed a great pleasure of mine. You are indeed a copacetic personality, and I welcome to Sagacious English Grammar, the ultimate destination for the master of English language skill. Straight away, we shall be diving into this today. There is a global misconception about the implication or URBTV, the usage of grammar and syntax. But first, it is important to take note that grammar and syntax are two different linguistic phenomena. They are also fundamental components because they enable us to communicate effectively and also express our thoughts, desires, and feelings with people in our day-to-day interaction. Many people find themselves within the yoke of confusion and they tend to ask themselves this question: isn't grammar and syntax the same thing? Well, let me simply answer by saying no. Grammar and syntax aren't the same concepts at all. There exists a subtle similarity between grammar and syntax, yet they are broadly different in diverse ways. To start with, I want you to see grammar as a house and syntax as a room within the house. Commit that to memory. I'm going to make reference to it as I continue with my explanation. First of all, grammar has to do with the study of the entirety of the structure of a language. For you, when people speak and you listen to them, you tend to rationally discern that this person is speaking a language. Before you could say that, then definitely there must be something that you heard the person speaking for you to say that this person is speaking a language, compared to when someone speaks gibberish. All these things that you could possibly observe can be referred to as grammar. Grammar is, for most concepts, that studies the entirety of the structure of a language. Everything that a language has to do with, everything that is peculiar to a language can be classified under grammar. Now, what are these things that are peculiar to a language? But before that, let me ask you a question. What are the things that are peculiar to a film? In other words, what are those things that makes up a film? You will have your camera, you will have your charging point, the screen, some other internal components, including the battery. Now, if all these things are not put together, can you possibly have the gadget referred to as film? I'm quite sure your answer will be no. The same thing is also applicable here. For you to have grammar, there are some things that, for you to have a language rather, there are some things that makes it up. And all these things classified or brought together is referred to as grammar. Now, what are these things? Let me list them and also explain a bit of them. Okay, starting with letters. Letters are the orthographic representation that enables you to speak and represent your thought in a writing. Likewise, you have sounds. You know, the sound is quite different from letters. Sound is a phonological representation. It is a phoneme, okay? And the number of sounds in a language, specifically the language I am speaking and which you could understand, English language, is quite different from the number of letters. Do you get it? So sounds enable us to pronounce words and transcribe, while letters enable us to spell our thought or words. The next I'm going to be talking about, which falls under the grammar of the language, is the morphology. Morphology is a concept on them which I could actually use about 15 minutes, 10 minutes to explain before stopping. So, but briefly, morphology has to do with the word formation process. There are two types of morphology, which are the bound morphemes and the free morphemes. In my adjacent video, I'm going to be explaining that. So the next thing is phonology. Phonology is also a component that could be classified under grammar. Phonology has to do with the sound system, the rules, the permissible rules, that in the permissible rules that organize, that are the permissible rules that verify the organization of sounds in a language is referred to as the phonology. It is not only applicable to English, it's applicable to every other language that you can speak, every other language that exists in the world. So the next also is syntax. Syntax could be classified under grammar. That is why I said earlier that I want you to akin grammar as a house and syntax as a room within a house. I'm going to come back to syntax very soon. Let me move to pragmatics. Pragmatics has to do with the contextual usage of words, how people tend to make use of the words in the society, while syntax has to do with the meaning of words. Now, all these concepts, all these elements, which I have listed, which I've mentioned rather, they are the elements, components that actually make up the grammar of a language. That is, the letters, the sound, the phonology, the morphology, the syntax, the semantics, and the pragmatics. So that is to say that grammar has to do with the entirety of the structure of a language. Everything that pertains to a language, everything that defines a language, everything that is peculiar to a language is referred to as the grammar. Okay? Now, I'm explaining that. What then is syntax? Syntax is a set of rules that governs the formation, organization of words. Before I proceed, it is important to take note that every sentences that we construct in a language is must be governed by a particular rule in syntax. If it is outside the rule, then definitely the sentence will be considered ungrammatical. Okay? So there is a grammatical model referred to as the transformation and generative grammar. It spells out the prescriptive study of a language, which also has to do with the syntax. So the syntax, in other words, it has to do with the rules that governs organization of words, make a phrase from phrase to clause and from clause to sentence. I'm going to say one thing about sentence. It is important to take note that sentence is the largest grammatical scale round. Okay, it is the largest grammatical scale round. So let me give you an example on that syntax. Just as I said earlier, syntax has to do with the rules. Okay. So there is a rule that goes this way: if the subject of a sentence is singular, the verb of the sentence must also be singular, and if the subject of the sentence is plural, the verb of the sentence must also be plural. Though there are some exceptions to this. This is one of the rules under Concord, and this rule has to do with the relationship that exists between a subject and a verb. As long as it has to do with the rules, okay, then definitely it is a syntax. Because syntax revolves around rules that governs the organization of words to make a phrase, clause, or sentences. Do you get that? Having said that, I would love to give an example in order to portray that. And this rule has to do with animals verb. You know, there exist different kind of verbs in English. One of the types of verbs is animalis verbs, and there are just 3 verbs under this, which are the as, have, and at. A rule implies that whenever have, has, or are is used in a sentence, it must be followed by a past participle. Do you get it? Like, he has been to the university. Been is a past participle. She has shown me the report. Shown is a past participle. We had been to the restaurant some time ago. Been is a past participle. Do you get it? So, likewise, you observe I said, we have been. We is a plural subject, then followed by a plural verb, which is have. It also goes alongside with the principle I gave initially. If the subject of the sentence is plural, the verb must also be plural. So, in a word, syntax has to do with the rules that governs the formation of a sentence, that governs the formation of words to make a phrase, clause, a sentence. So back to the illustration I gave to you, you could actually akin grammar as a house and syntax as a room within a house, simply because syntax is a subset within grammar. Do you get that? Just like every other part is important, every other part that make up a phone is important, the same way or the same thing is also applicable to syntax. Syntax enables us to communicate effectively with people. It also ensures that we're capable of expressing our thought, our ideas, our desires, and feelings with people in our day-to-day interaction. So that actually explains the difference and the relationship between grammar and syntax. I hope this video is a blessing. If so, kindly subscribe to the YouTube channel, like the video, drop a comment. See you next time. Sagacious. Goodbye.